This video is going to have a look at fertility treatments. So you're going to have a look at what happens when people can't get pregnant. A lot of it is common knowledge, but you need to know it anyway. So there are three different ways that you can have fertility treatments. One of them is IVF, which you should have come across in the additional, hormone treatment, and then the use of surrogates. So the first one we're going to have a look at is hormone treatment. Now, hormone treatments usually come in if FSH levels are too low. So in other words, the eggs won't mature. So what doctors will do is they will inject into the patient either follicle stimulating hormone FSH or the luteinizing hormone LH. And what that will mean is more eggs will be matured. Now, it's always important to look at the positives and negatives of something like this, and that certainly could come up in the exam. So the main benefit is that it helps people get pregnant, which is obviously the thing that they're going for. But there are some negatives to look at. One of the key things is it doesn't always work. Sometimes you can put in as much of the hormone as you want, but it won't work. Some people just can't get pregnant. And sometimes it can have the opposite effect. It can produce too many eggs, and you can get multiple pregnancies, so twins, triplets, which if you're only going for one, could be a bit of a nightmare. Okay, so the next one we're going to have a look at is IVF. Now, from the additional, you should be able to remember that IVF, the other word for that is in vitro fertilization. So this is where they take the egg from the mother, fertilize it in a lab, and then transfer it to the womb. Now, if the female can't get pregnant, they can use a donor egg, but we'll look at that in a bit more detail when we get onto surrogacy later on. So again, there are positives and negatives of this technique, which I'm about to go through with you. So if the egg is transferred back into the womb of the actual mother, again, the positives are you get a child. The negatives are, for some people, it can give you a very, very strong reaction, so you can get abdominal pain, vomiting, and it can be quite unpleasant. There are some reports that it can give you cancer by doing this, although if you read the news, everything can give you cancer. And also, similar to the hormone one, it can lead to multiple births as well. Now, obviously, this cancer one is down to, there are some people saying it can cause cancer, some people saying it doesn't, and there's not enough evidence to say either way as of yet. Using a donor, so putting it into the womb of a donor person, or sorry, using an egg from a donor is perfect if, say, the mother had a genetic disease and they wanted to avoid that. So they could use a different egg and avoid that genetic disease like cystic fibrosis. But the negatives are it can be emotionally difficult if you know that that's not actually your biological child, or the child knows that. It can cause some emotional problems. Okay, so the final one we're going to have a look at is surrogacy. So a surrogate, which you should know by now, but if you don't worry about it, is basically where you use a different person to conceive and to have the birth. So they start off with IVF, like I mentioned in the previous section, but instead of going back into the mother, this time it goes into a surrogate, so someone that is either paid or someone that volunteers to have that child with inside them for 9 months. And then when the child is born, it is passed to the biological parent. So once again, the positives are it allows those parents that can't conceive to have a child. And if it was too risky, so for example, if the mother could suffer from having that child, from giving birth, lots of conditions can do that, or if they had a genetic disease and they didn't want the blood to mix with the child, they could do it that way. The negatives, though, are again the emotional side of it. Legally, that child, until fully adopted, is the surrogate mother's. So even though it might have the DNA of the parents, because that surrogate mother has given birth to it, she is the legal mother. Now that means until that adoption is complete, she has the right to turn around and say, actually no, I want to keep this child, and then the actual parents would be able to do nothing about it. So there is a sense of risk involved there. And there we go, that is everything on fertility treatment.